My boss is paying for the hotel suite. I owe him a fun night, she said, twisting the cap off her sparkling water like she hadn't just detonated a marriage. Then she added, half smirking, "Don't wait up." I stared at her from across the kitchen island. She was wearing that black dress, the one she used to reserve for our anniversaries. Now it was for client dinners and corporate mixers. The heels clicked sharper than usual. Too much perfume, not enough shame. I just nodded. "Text me the room number." That froze her for a half second, not long enough for guilt, but just enough to wonder what I meant. She tilted her head and let out a breathy laugh, the kind you hear from someone bluffing with a bad hand. "Don't be dramatic," she said, slinging her purse over her shoulder like she was running late for something far more exciting than a life with me. The front door shut, her taillights disappeared into the night. And I didn't follow. I didn't beg. I didn't even blink. Instead, I walked into the garage, past the workbench, past the camping gear we hadn't used since before her promotion. In the bottom drawer of a metal cabinet, beneath old tax files and manuals for appliances we didn't own anymore, I pulled out two folders, one red, one navy. The red one was labeled wife, the navy one HR. I'd started them 9 months ago, not out of paranoia, out of instinct. It began with her staying late, building bridges with the exec team. Then came the name drops. "Mark says I'm leadership material. Mark thinks I'm underutilized." Then one night she came home giggling at a text and I watched her type, "Can't talk, he's here," before locking her screen. I wasn't stupid, just patient. In one folder were her work itineraries, expense statements, and photos from the company website, oddly frequent updates that showed her standing closer to her boss every quarter. In the other, printed policies, whistleblower protocols, employee relationship disclosures. Dry reading, sure. But when you've been slowly erased from your wife's life, you start appreciating fine print. I didn't build a case, I built an exit. And if you're listening to this thinking, "Damn, this is dark," it is, but it's real. I'm telling you this because more than 90% of you are listening without subscribing. If you want more stories like this, raw, unfiltered, and with the kind of endings they never show in movies, hit that button. It motivates the team. And trust me, what's coming next? You're going to want to hear it. Back to that night. While she was off thanking her boss for a luxury suite, I was connecting dots. The hotel wasn't new. She'd mentioned it 3 times in the past 6 weeks, always in passing. "Mark said the spa is great there," or "that rooftop bar is where the board likes to meet." I checked her shared calendar. Nothing was blocked off, but she'd marked "Client Strategy Sync" in all caps, like she wanted to convince someone, maybe herself. Then I found the digital key confirmation in her email drafts. She never hit send. But the suite number was there, 1412, and her boss's initials were in the subject line. Convenient. I sat in the garage another hour. No music, no lights, just the hum of the beer fridge and the sound of a man subtracting emotion from action. At 11:04 p.m. I made a call. She didn't know it yet, but her night at the hotel wasn't going to end the way she'd imagined. Because if she was going to treat me like a fool, I figured she should meet the people I'd been quietly becoming friends with. One of them, her boss's wife. And the other? Well, HR always loves a good performance review. The last time I spoke to her was at the company's summer retreat, back when team building meant charcuterie boards and awkward paddleboarding instead of quiet affairs in hotel suites. She was polite, distant, the kind of woman who wore pearl earrings to a bonfire and made you feel like mispronouncing bruschetta was a personal attack. But she watched, observant, like someone used to being underestimated. Now, I was calling her at 11:09 p.m. on a Saturday night. The phone rang 4 times. I half expected voicemail, then she picked up. "Hello?" I could hear the soft murmur of a TV in the background. She sounded composed until I spoke. "I believe we're both being humiliated tonight." 3 seconds of silence, then a sharp inhale. "Who is this?" I gave my name. Another pause, shorter this time. Her tone changed, went from confused to cold, like someone sliding a scalpel into a glove. "What's happening?" she asked. "She's in suite 1412, I said. "With your husband. The suite's under his corporate card. They checked in an hour ago." She was wearing the black dress with the lace on the back. No disbelief, no gasp, just efficiency. "Hotel name?" she asked. I told her. She didn't waste time pretending to be surprised. I'll drive, she said, then almost as an afterthought, how long have you known? Long enough to want it done right, I replied. Bring someone from HR. It's better that way. Her voice was smooth, even. Already sent a message to Claire. She owes me a favor. I ended the call. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the ceiling of the garage. The house was silent. So silent you could hear the ice settling in the bourbon I'd poured and not touched. I wasn't shaking, I wasn't pacing, I wasn't grieving, I was preparing. You spend enough years watching someone fall out of love with you in slow motion, and you stop asking questions like why. You start asking how far. And tonight, she gave me a map. I checked my phone. She hadn't texted the room number. Didn't matter. I already had it. People like her forget that secrets don't need to be shouted to be found. Sometimes they're buried in calendar metadata or flagged as unread in shared inboxes. Suite 1412. I changed shirts. Nothing dramatic. Just something clean, something neutral. You want to show up to your own betrayal looking like you weren't surprised. Like you chose to be there. By the time I pulled up to the hotel, HR had already arrived. Claire, mid-40s, known for handling C-suite scandals with a velvet glove and an iron claws. She stood in the lobby near the concierge, holding a clipboard and a look that could curdle milk. A minute later, his wife arrived. Black coat, tight bun, no makeup. Just fury dressed in silence. She walked up to me like we were coworkers arriving for a strategy session. No police, she said. Wasn't going to suggest it. We go up together, she added. Agreed. Let me talk first. I nodded. You've earned the right. She looked me over once, then added, You seem calm. I smiled faintly. I've been grieving for a while. This is just the funeral. We walked to the elevator. Claire followed. No one said a word as we ascended. The tension in that metal box was thick enough to slice. She checked her watch. HR types are always punctual, even for meltdowns. Ding. 14th floor. We stepped out. Walking down the long, carpeted hallway toward the suite, I could hear laughter. Low, drunken, familiar. It wasn't just the sound that stabbed, it was the ease of it. She was always careful around me. Guarded. Now she was loud. Happy. The woman beside me didn't flinch, but her breathing changed, subtle, like a sprinter before the gun. We reached the door. Suite 1412, I knocked, calm, 3 times. Behind it movement, then footsteps. Light ones, hers. The handle turned, and all I could think was, You should have just texted me the room number. The front desk clerk was young, early 20s, wide eyes, eager to please. He didn't ask many questions. Once I handed over the 50 tucked neatly between my license and a fake story about surprising my wife. Corporate suite under the company's name? No problem. He even tilted the monitor slightly so I could confirm the reservation. Suite 1412, Mark G. 2 guests checked in, time-stamped at 10:07 p.m. Security footage? A simple favor. She loves surprises, I said, tapping the counter. Want to make sure I don't walk in on something too surprising. He laughed. I didn't. A few minutes later, he slipped me a still frame printed on glossy paper. There they were, her in that dress, him in a charcoal blazer already unbuttoned. She had one hand on his chest, the other held a keycard. Thanks, I said, folding the photo and slipping it into my jacket pocket. I'll take it from here. Claire, from HR, arrived first, her signature walk purposeful, heels tapping like a metronome for corporate doom. She didn't smile, just nodded and stood beside me like this was any other audit. The wife arrived next, dressed not for comfort, not for confrontation, but for clarity. No jewelry, no mascara, just a calm storm brewing under her collarbone. She didn't ask for details, didn't demand confirmation. She already knew. That's what made her dangerous. Together we crossed the lobby, past the couple checking in for a honeymoon, past a man in gym shorts carrying melted ice cream. We stepped into the elevator without speaking. Floor 14. It was a long hallway. Carpet too plush for the budget, lighting dim but warm. One of those corridors that tries to convince you bad things don't happen in nice places. Claire checked her watch. Again, always the metrics person, always counting seconds. The laughter started around Suite 1412, muted but clear enough. Her laugh, carefree and open in a way I hadn't heard in years. His, louder, slurred at the edges. A bottle popped, glass clinked. Then music, low, jazzy, the kind of soundtrack people play when they want to pretend something unspeakable is just spontaneous. I slowed as we reached the door. HR flanked the left. His wife stood right, me in the center. Not by accident, I was the fulcrum in this moment between exposure and fallout. I raised my hand, knocked 3 times. Laughter inside paused, then footsteps. Lighter ones first. Hers, the handle turned, and there she was. She opened the door with that same smile she used on every Instagram post captioned, "Work hard, play harder." Robe tied, hair tousled in the kind of way that looks unplanned but takes effort. She expected room service or more wine. What she got was me. And beside me, his wife. Arms crossed, eyes steady. And Claire holding a clipboard, phone angled just right to record the moment. Her smile shattered. Her face collapsed in on itself like a cheap tent in the wind. "Oh my God," she whispered, trying to push the door closed, but it was too late. He stumbled into view behind her, shirtless, red in the face, holding a wine glass in one hand and a half-buttoned apology in the other. He froze when he saw his wife. "Elaine, She didn't speak. Claire stepped forward, pressing record. "As per corporate policy, I need to inform both parties this conversation may be used for investigative purposes." My wife tried to backpedal. It's not what it looks like." The wife finally spoke. "You owe me a lot more than a fun night, Mark." And then the quietest moment in the room, the realization settling over both of them that this wasn't an argument or a scene or a misunderstanding. It was a reckoning. I didn't say a word, didn't look angry, just bored. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Let the cameras catch that part. The trap had already been sprung. The rest? Just documentation. The robe slipped a little off her shoulder when she saw us. Me, the man she left cooling like leftovers, flanked by the woman she'd just betrayed, and the one person from corporate no one ever wants knocking on their door. She blinked like she needed a second to believe this wasn't some twisted dream. Her lips were still curled in that half-drunken smirk from whatever joke had just died in her throat. Then her eyes landed on Claire, HR's resident angel of death, holding up a corporate-issued iPhone, camera already rolling. That's when the panic started. Behind her, Mark shuffled into view, barefoot and red-faced, half a button shy of dignity. He froze mid-step, holding a glass of overpriced Malbec like a man caught mid-affair in a murder mystery, which, I suppose, he was. Elaine, his wife, didn't hesitate. Her voice cut clean through the suite like a scalpel through silk. "You owe me a lot more than a fun night, Mark." Mark opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. There are no words for that kind of naked exposure. Claire, ever the professional, didn't miss a beat. Per Section 4.2 of the Personal Conduct Policy, I'm required to notify both parties that this is being documented for internal review. We'll need formal statements from each of you within 48 hours. My wife finally reacted, trying to slam the door shut. Pure reflex. But I stepped forward, palm flat against the wood. She wasn't strong enough to stop it. The door remained open. So did the shame. "Please, Tabo," she whispered, eyes flicking between us. "Can we talk? Just you and me?" I didn't respond. Not yet. Mark muttered something under his breath, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse, and turned toward Elaine like he thought charm was still an option. "Look, honey, this isn't..." Elaine raised her phone. Click. "No need to finish," she said. "You've said enough." There was nowhere to run now. Not in that plush suite with its turned-down service and ambient jazz still playing like a sick joke in the background. I scanned the room, 2 wine glasses, one half full, her phone charging on the nightstand, his wallet carelessly dropped near a room service tray. No shame, just comfort, like they'd done this before. Probably had. The room smelled like perfume and arrogance. She reached for my hand again, desperate this time. "Please, it wasn't planned. It just, happened." "Like falling off a cliff?" I asked. "Or like booking a room with a loyalty number and pretending I wouldn't notice your gym bag disappeared yesterday?" That hit. She recoiled, face twisted between fury and guilt. "You went through my stuff?" "I watched you unravel for months," I said. The bag was just punctuation. Claire cleared her throat. "This suite is under a company card. By policy, both parties will be subject to review for potential misuse of corporate funds, violation of ethics clauses, and undisclosed relationships between supervisory personnel." Mark looked like he aged 10 years in 5 seconds. Elaine tilted her head. "Will that affect his bonus?" Claire smiled. It may affect his employment. It wasn't personal anymore. It was procedural. She tried again, lowering her voice, trying to pull me into the corner with her eyes. Can we talk outside? Just you and me? No, I said. We had that chance when you still remembered my name before midnight. Mark finally snapped. Why are you even here, man? You don't have to do this. I turned to him slowly. I'm not doing anything. You did this. I'm just the notification system. Claire handed each of them a sealed envelope. Instructions. You'll need to schedule separate interviews by Monday. Legal is aware. Elaine added her own gift, a small velvet jewelry box she pulled from her coat pocket. She tossed it onto the bed. Mark blinked. Is that our anniversary gift? She said flatly. Thought I'd deliver it personally. The box remained unopened. As we turned to leave, my wife whispered, You don't have to destroy me. I looked back. I'm not destroying you. I'm just letting people see you without the filters. The elevator ride down was quiet. Claire finally broke the silence. Well, she said, that was thorough. Elaine didn't say a word, but as we walked out into the parking lot, she looked at me, really looked, and said, You didn't flinch once. I shrugged. I flinched enough in private. This part? This is just cleanup. Monday morning didn't wait for them to recover. It arrived with blood in its teeth and a 7:30 a.m. all-hands meeting on the executive calendar titled Policy Review and Immediate Conduct Action Mandatory Attendance. The company logo was burned into the top of the HR slide deck, but no one remembers the branding. What they remember is Claire's voice, clipped, clinical, and devastating. We are initiating a formal internal investigation involving the misuse of corporate funds, failure to disclose supervisory relationships, and breach of the code of conduct by senior leadership. That was the first knife. The second came 20 minutes later when Mark's calendar was locked and a silent update marked him inactive, under review. By noon, he was escorted from the building, not by security, but by the director of compliance. That's worse. Security makes it look like a misunderstanding. Compliance means they already found the body. And her, she didn't get fired. She was offered voluntary leave pending investigation. That's corporate speak for, we know. We just want you to sign it before we publish the autopsy. She walked out through the side entrance, the one near the shipping dock, avoiding the lobby, the glances, the whispers. HR didn't force her to, but she knew. The vultures were already circling. The emails were next. No one's sure who leaked them. Could have been anyone on legal's review team, or maybe someone with access to the shared servers. Doesn't matter. The content leaked like a pipe burst. Screenshots of flirtatious threads, calendar invites with too much emoji usage, shared hotel bookings on corporate trips, and one document that hurt the most, a co-branded hotel loyalty account. The email linked it all. Her name, his rewards number, the suite upgrades, the spa discounts, the bottle of champagne marked, Thank you for your continued loyalty, Mr. and Mrs. G. It circulated quietly at first, just the executive layer. But corporate gossip moves like oxygen in a fire. By Tuesday morning, someone had printed a copy and left it in the break room, folded next to a stack of stale croissants. Her phone rang. Constantly. Claire, her own team, her mentor, her mentor's assistant, legal, one of the VPs she'd pitched to just a week earlier, a recruiter she'd ghosted last fall, was now sending just checking in messages. But none of the calls were from me. And that silence, that was the part that broke her, because anger is something you can fight. Even blame you can twist into sympathy if you cry in the right places. But being ignored, truly ignored, that's a mirror. No distortion, just your own decisions. Staring back, she texted me once, just, can we talk? I read it, let the screen dim, deleted it. That silence was the one thing I knew she never prepared for. She'd spent years mastering noise, meetings, panels, feedback loops, social events, wine tastings where people pretended to like each other. But now she sat in her apartment. Yes, apartment. She hadn't dared go back to the house, with nothing but the sound of her own breathing and a muted TV playing infomercials between commercial real estate reruns. She tried to reach out to friends. Most were polite, some weren't. A few didn't reply at all. It's funny how quickly people vanish when you become bad PR. One of her closest work wives sent her a message that said, "Just so you know, legal flagged your name in the Q3 audits. Be careful. No, how are you? No, hang in there." Just a quiet shove toward the exit. She started pulling at threads then, going through old messages, trying to make sense of how long I must have known. She scrolled through her own behavior like a detective reviewing the body cam after a blackout, trying to find the exact moment I stopped being soft, when the silence stopped being passive and started being pointed. She thought she had time, thought I'd wait like I always did. I'd stew, I'd sulk, then I'd forgive. But she'd miscalculated. This time the house was already sold, my name was already gone from our shared accounts, my direct deposit rerouted, my voicemail set to no longer in service. I became a ghost in record time. And the more she searched for noise, the more deafening that quiet became. She didn't know what I'd do next. That uncertainty, that was deliberate. She needed to feel it. What it's like when someone removes themselves from the wreckage before it collapses. Not to escape, but to make sure the explosion only takes down what deserved to burn. And this was only the opening act. She unlocked the front door slowly, like the house might flinch. It was late, later than she meant to come back. She'd told herself she'd just stay at a friend's for one night, maybe two, until the news died down, until HR figured out how to clean things without leaving stains. But corporate silence came quickly and colder. By Thursday, she realized no one was calling to check in, not even her assistant. The office laptop had been remotely wiped, her access revoked. Every calendar invite marked her status as on leave. She wasn't just being sidelined, she was being erased. So she came home, or rather, came back, because what waited behind that front door no longer felt like it belonged to her. The foyer smelled faintly of cedar and vacuum lines. No shoes on the rug, no jacket on the hook. The lights were off, but she could feel it before she saw it. Something was wrong. Then she turned the corner into the kitchen, and everything broke. His clothes were gone. From the coat rack, the closet, the drawers, gone. The row of his mugs on the shelf, gone. His keys, the watch he always forgot on the kitchen counter, the sneakers he used to leave by the back door, all gone. Even the old beige hoodie she always said made him look unemployed had vanished. The one she used to borrow without asking, sleep in, wrap around herself like it was harmless. The garage door was cracked open. She stumbled toward it, heart hammering, flicking on the light. Empty. Workbench cleared, tools packed, boxes gone. The overhead storage bin where he kept camping gear and tax returns, dusty and hollow. Only the outline of his toolbox remained like a chalk drawing after a body's been moved. Back in the kitchen, on the marble counter they picked out together at that stupid warehouse in Glendale, lay a single sheet of paper, handwritten, no date, no greeting. "You're free now, like you wanted." That was the first sentence. Then, "You may want to check the prenup under Section 9. That was the second. She didn't move right away. Her mind tried to fill in a third sentence, something cruel, something ugly, but it didn't come. There was nothing else on the page. He wasn't cruel. He was finished. That was worse. She practically ran to the office, yanked open the file cabinet, fingers shaking as she rifled through the folders they hadn't touched since the mortgage refinance. It was all still there. Tax returns, titles, the dog's old vet records, and the prenup. She pulled it out like it was radioactive, flipped through pages until she found it, Section 9. She read it 3 times to be sure. In the event of proven infidelity by either party with a professional or fiduciary relation to their employer, all rights to spousal support and shared asset distribution are forfeited by the offending party. Her signature was at the bottom. So was his. Her mouth dried, knees buckled. She sat on the floor without meaning to, just slid down like gravity finally remembered her. Her breath came in short, uneven bursts as the meaning swallowed her whole. He hadn't yelled, he hadn't screamed, he hadn't even asked for an explanation. He'd simply removed himself with surgical calm. And in doing so, he'd left a vacuum, a silence so complete it roared inside her ears. She crawled to the hallway where the wedding photos used to hang. They were gone too. Only faint outlines in the paint where the frames had shielded the wall from fading. No shards, no mess, just Urfu removed. He had undone a life with precision, not to punish, to protect himself. And she hadn't seen it coming, not because he'd hidden it, but because she never thought he'd stop waiting, never thought the man she'd rolled her eyes at for years, The man she'd accused of never taking initiative, of always playing it safe, would be the one to dismantle her life without so much as a slammed door. She thought betrayal was fire, explosions, screaming, lawyers. But it wasn't. It was quiet. It was clean. It was an empty garage, a cleared shelf, a note that ended with a legal clause. She tried to cry, but the tears didn't come. Instead, she sat on the tile, the prenup in her lap, trying to remember the last time she told him she loved him, and realizing all too late that he'd stopped needing to hear it long before he stopped believing it. She didn't sleep for 3 nights after reading Section 9, not because she was grieving, not in the way people grieve love anyway. That part had been starved and strangled long before the hotel suite and the robe and the wine. What she grieved was control, predictability, the certainty that he, with his quiet dinners and budget spreadsheets and boring loyalty, would always be there. And now, he was smoke. And every time she reached out, her hands came back empty. The first call went to voicemail. She kept it simple. Please call me. Nothing. The second was longer, rehearsed. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. I made a mistake. Can we talk? Just talk. Nothing. By the 5th attempt, her voice cracked. I get it, okay? I deserve this. But can you just let me explain? Still nothing. She tried texting, just his name, at first, then more desperate messages. I need to talk to you. Please. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Every one of them stayed unread. 3 dots never appeared. She checked if he blocked her. Called from her work phone. Still nothing. She even tried his brother, the one he always complained never returned tools, the one they barely saw outside of barbecues and birthdays. He picked up after 2 rings. Hey, she said, trying to inject casual regret. Is he with you? A pause, then flatly, he's not interested in talking. She tried to soften. Can you just tell him? Click. Line dead. She drove by the house the next day. The for sale sign wasn't just up, it was already gone, replaced by a tidy white post with a red banner across the top. Sold. She sat in her car across the street for 30 minutes, staring. The blinds were open, but the rooms were empty. No furniture, no light, no presents. Even the garden, which she used to tend on weekends while she rolled her eyes from the kitchen window, had been trimmed, manicured, reset with new mulch. It looked like a catalog, like he'd wiped himself out of it deliberately. She went to his workplace next, parked in the same garage she used to use when she'd drop off his lunch in those early years. The receptionist was new. I'm looking for, she said, giving his full name, trying to steady her voice. The girl typed, paused, frowned. Sorry, he's not in our system. No, she said, smiling like this was just a silly misunderstanding. He works here. Or, he did. Another few keystrokes, then a polite, professional smile. He resigned last week. Where did he go? Sorry, we're not allowed to share that. She stood in the lobby for a full minute after that, just staring at the company logo on the glass. A place he used to walk into 5 days a week. A place where his mug used to sit beside the coffee machine, with that stupid sticker that said data is sexy. Gone. She went home, poured a drink, didn't even change clothes, just sat on the floor with her phone in her lap, refreshing messages that weren't there. She started imagining him somewhere coastal maybe, laughing with someone younger, someone who never asked him to be more ambitious, more daring, more powerful, someone who didn't weaponize words like potential to cut deeper than silence. Then 1 week after the hotel, her phone lit up. Unknown number. Her heart jumped. She opened the message. You always said I lacked initiative, so I took some. Below it, a photo. The house. Same porch, same front step where she once told him she wanted a separation of energy in the relationship. Code for, I'm already halfway out the door. Only now, the door had a new color, a new welcome mat, and a sold sticker on the realty sign's frame. Up close, she stared at the image, zoomed in on the doorknob, on the faint reflection of someone walking away just out of frame. She typed back, where are you? No reply. Typed again. Please, can we just talk? Still nothing. That's when it hit her. Not just that he was gone, but that he was removing himself like an infection the body finally recognized. Every legal thread snipped, every asset divided before she had a chance to notice the scissors. She didn't lose him in the hotel suite. She lost him months before when he stopped asking for her attention. Now, he wasn't just punishing her, he was making himself unreachable and, worse, untouchable. She showed up unannounced, hair undone, no makeup, wringing her hands like an understudy begging for a second audition. The upscale condo complex her ex-boss's wife lived in wasn't hard to find. Google still worked, even for the disgraced. She waited outside the glass lobby until someone buzzed her in, then waited another 20 minutes in front of the door, rehearsing lines that sounded human. When the door opened, Elaine stood in black slacks and a gray silk blouse. Perfect posture, no warmth. I just, she started. I need a minute. Elaine didn't move. Why? I want to apologize, not to him, well, yes, him too, but to you. I know what I did, what we did was wrong. I wasn't thinking. Elaine didn't blink. No. You were counting on him not thinking. She flinched at that, a full-body recoil as if the woman had just read the script she hadn't meant to write. I didn't mean, you didn't care. Elaine's voice didn't rise. She didn't need to shout. Her control was its own weapon. You didn't cheat with a stranger. You didn't fall into some messy, accidental night with someone you didn't know. You picked your boss. You picked someone with power. Someone you could protect behind an NDA and a glass office door. Her jaw tightened. It was a mistake. No, Elaine said. It was a calculation. A bad one. And the worst part? You didn't just cheat. You mocked the man who would have forgiven you if you just told the truth before that door opened. Silence thickened. The apartment behind Elaine looked perfect. Immaculate, modern, nothing out of place. But she stood in the doorway like a bouncer guarding the last clean place on earth. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, she said quietly. But could you just tell him I'm sorry? That I didn't mean to hurt him like this? Elaine tilted her head. You want me to fix this for you? No, just, I don't know. You're the only one who still talks to him, right? Elaine exhaled slowly, turned, disappeared into the apartment for a moment, returned with the manila envelope, thick, heavy. She handed it over without a word. Inside, photographs of her and Mark, blurry but unmistakable, entering hotels months before Suite 1412, expense statements with both names listed. One even showed a spa treatment for two billed to client entertainment. And the kicker, the internal HR report, Mark's resignation, her own disciplinary notice. Every line item laid out like a slow-motion car crash. She looked up, stunned. Why do you have all this? Elaine shrugged. Because when you burn the house down, someone has to catalog the ashes. She stammered. This could will ruin, Elaine corrected. It will ruin your next interview. Your next pitch, your next reference check, your name's already on the short list of do not contact in 3 departments. You'll need those papers to remember what not to say. Her knees went weak. She clutched the envelope like it was both evidence and punishment. You didn't come here to apologize, Elaine added. You came here because you thought I'd give you a shortcut to redemption. You thought I'd say something soft, like he still loves you, or maybe if you explain. She paused. But he doesn't, and you can't. Her eyes watered, but she didn't cry, not because she didn't want to, but because she was standing in front of someone who wouldn't care either way. I lost everything. Elaine looked her over once. No, you gave it away, piece by piece, smile by smile, and now that the cost has finally shown up, you're trying to return it. There was no door slam, no grand ending. Elaine simply stepped back and shut the door with quiet finality. She stood there, holding the envelope, staring at the wood grain like it might open again and offer a do-over. It didn't. She walked back to her car. No one stopped her. No one called, not even Mark, especially not him. And when she opened the envelope again, later that night, one photo slipped free, a grainy shot of her laughing on a balcony with a wine glass in her hand, Mark standing behind her. The timestamp? 4 months before the suite, 4 months before the robe, 4 months before she said, "Don't be dramatic." Turns out he hadn't been. He was just paying attention. And now,
No one else would help her rebuild the bridge she torched for a night she didn't even remember that fondly. She arrived in court wearing the kind of outfit people mistake for confidence: tailored navy blazer, pearl studs, muted heels. Her lawyer whispered encouragements like a stage parent while she clutched her coffee like a talisman, eyes scanning the room for him. But the seat reserved for him stayed empty. He wasn't coming.
She scoffed quietly. Coward. Her lawyer didn't respond, just tapped his tablet, murmured about narrative framing and perception dynamics. That's how far they'd sunk, strategizing optics in a courtroom over a marriage neither of them had truly been in for years. They were there to contest the prenup, specifically Section 9, the clause that gutted her when she first read it, legs folding beneath her in their old kitchen. The clause she signed without a second thought 7 years ago, when love was fresh and paperwork was boring. Infidelity triggers automatic forfeiture. At the time, she'd laughed and said, "Sure, if I ever sleep with my boss, I'll write you a check myself." She even joked about adding emojis to her initials. Now, here she was, not laughing. The judge entered, standard introductions. Her lawyer stood and delivered a well-rehearsed monologue. The clause was overly punitive, vaguely worded, emotionally coercive. He leaned into phrases like marital nuance and ambiguous intent. Then the opposing counsel stood, a man so nondescript he could have blended into a wallpaper convention. No theatrics, no swagger, just a black binder labeled Chronology of Consent. He handed it to the bailiff, passed up to the bench, opened. Inside, a meticulous record. Not just the hotel suite, that would have been easy. No, this was a timeline, a brutal chronological dissection of her slow, deliberate departure from fidelity. Every flirtatious email, every calendar invite titled Strategy Sync scheduled past 9 p.m., expense reimbursements with 2 entrees in one room, photos, metadata, even her own Slack messages pulled via discovery request with timestamps and emojis that now felt like confessionals. And then the texts, pages of them, flirty, suggestive, at times crude. But the worst one, a text she sent to her best friend 2 months before the suite. "He still thinks I'm just overworked. I could sleep with Mark and he'd still ask if I wanted him to pick up Ty." The judge looked up, expression unreadable. A long pause, then "Counsel, your motion to dismiss the spousal support claim under Section 9 is granted. The prenuptial agreement stands." Her lawyer objected, citing lack of direct testimony. The judge replied, "The evidence is the testimony." Bang of the gavel. Dismissed. She didn't move, didn't breathe, just turned slowly toward the seat where he should have been. Second chair from the front, left side. Empty. He'd known it would be. He'd planned for it to be. And now she realized it wasn't avoidance, it was design. Because some people win by showing up. He won by not needing to. Outside the courthouse, reporters weren't waiting. No one snapped photos. No headlines were written because there was no scandal anymore. Just vacancy. The man she'd cheated on had done something worse than yell, worse than retaliate. He'd vanished from her narrative entirely, left her with a future full of closed doors and forwarded calls. The house was gone, the savings inaccessible, her reputation radioactive in every corner of her professional world. Even the friends who once cheered her career glow-up now replied with cool silences and convenient excuses. She stood outside on the steps of the courthouse, holding a latte she no longer wanted, in heels that suddenly hurt. No him, no second chance, not even a dramatic ending, just an empty chair, and the echo of everything she thought she'd never lose. The elevator dinged softly on the 14th floor. Same artificial chime, same polished brass frame. She stepped out, heels muted by the thick carpet, shoulders back, nerves sharp. The recruiter had booked the room, some kind of casual executive suite setup for the informal part of the process. Just a conversation, they said. Over coffee, maybe lunch. Nothing serious. Not yet. Her phone buzzed with a reminder. Room 1412. She paused. Blink. Room 1412. The number sat on her screen like a scar she didn't know was still tender. She looked up the hallway and saw it, halfway down, left side, just like before. Of course. Of all the rooms. The corridor was sterile, silent, almost respectful of what memory was now chewing through her composure. Every footstep forward felt like a dare. She reached the door. stared at the plaque, brushed her fingers over the numbers like they might change. It opened before she knocked. Not to him, just a middle-aged man in business casual, holding a tablet and an apology. Sorry, was expecting the last candidate. She stepped inside, but her body didn't follow. She was somewhere else now. 1 year ago, same carpet, same air conditioning hum, same room. She could see it. Him, standing there in silence, flanked by HR and a woman who had every right to turn pain into precision. She remembered the way his eyes didn't yell, how his stillness didn't need volume, how the absence of anger was the loudest sound she'd ever heard. That version of him, betrayed but unreadable, had hollowed her out in a way no slap, no screamed accusation ever could have. And even now, walking into a room meant for redemption, for opportunity, she couldn't outrun the ghost she'd summoned the first time she opened that door. Because doors don't forget. And neither did she. She sat for the interview, nodded in the right places, answered questions with polish, but something in her voice stayed just half a note off. They noticed. Professionals always do. She wasn't sloppy, just not whole. Afterward, she walked the hall slowly, past the elevators, past the ice machine, paused again in front of 1412, pressed her palm to the wood like it might answer. It didn't. 3 states away, he walked a boardwalk under early evening light. Nothing dramatic, just another quiet Sunday, a breeze that moved with purpose, a new hand intertwined with his. Familiar. She laughed at something he said. He smiled. The past didn't live in his eyes anymore. His phone buzzed. He checked it briefly. Unknown number. I still think of that night. He didn't hesitate. He deleted it. Didn't even open the message. She had her moment, he'd once told a friend, and she used it to look through him. Now he looked forward and built things that didn't need forgiveness to survive. Some people write chapters, others erase them. Room 1412 never came up again. For her, it became a place she revisited only in dreams and hotel hallways, a doorway between who she pretended to be and the man she mistook for weak. But for him, it was just a room, one she left open, and he closed. For good.